Our next speaker, unfortunately, couldn't be here, Dr. Holly Lisenby. She's the founding dean and foundation professor with tenure at the newly founded Arizona State University School of Medicine and Advanced Medical Engineering. So congrats to her on those new adventures. And Dr. Lisenby was actually a mentor on Kathleen's K Award as she transitioned from animal models to the clinical human studies. And that was in the period of 2008 to 2013. And so the prompt associated with this mentor, we asked Kathleen, can you describe this person in 3 adjectives and 1 emoji? And the 3 words that Kathleen used were driven, generous, and kind, and the clapping emoji. She's always cheering on her trainees. So we'll play these.
Hi, my name is Holly Lisenby, and I am so honored to have been asked to say a few words at this symposium honoring an amazing scientist, Dr. Kathleen Friel. I met Kathleen almost 20 years ago, so Kathleen, I get to say, I knew you when. When we met, Kathleen was a postdoctoral fellow in the lab of Dr. Jack Martin at Columbia, working on cat models of CP. She joined the faculty of the Brain Stimulation and Therapeutic Modulation Division that I founded at Columbia, and in 2008 was promoted to become an assistant professor of clinical psychiatry upon receiving her KL2 award from the Columbia Irving Institute. Wasting no time, by July 2009, Dr. Friel had already received her KO1 Career Development Award from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke to continue her translational research in the animal model and in children with hemiplegia. Dr. Friel's research is translational science with high clinical impact. She's worked across species, the cat and the primate, and by that I mean the non-human primate as well as humans. You've heard from Dr. Nudo about her PhD work in non-human primates, which underscored the importance of functional segregation of somatosensory projections in the motor cortex. And you've heard from Dr. Martin about her postdoc work, where she studied recovery in a cat model of hemiplegic CP. Now, 2 animal models would be more than enough for your average scientist to spend their careers on. But Kathleen is not your average scientist. Motivated by her long-term goal of developing effective CP therapies based on understanding of the mechanisms of recovery, she decided to learn a whole new set of skills. This time, human research, using a then new tool called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, to study the mechanisms by which behavioral therapies work in children with CP, and to test out some of the mechanistic hypotheses that came from her animal models. This meant learning an entirely new world of research, human clinical trials, institutional review boards, the ins and outs of neuronavigated TMS and neuroimaging, and she mastered all of it. Fortunately for me, she reached out to my lab to gain those skills and graciously invited me to be her co-mentor. Kathleen has had enviable scientific productivity throughout her career in terms of all the usual metrics, papers, and grants. In terms of papers, NIH has this tool called EyeSight that you can look her up. I encourage you to do it. It's a great read. She's got 70 papers supported by NIH funding. There's some metrics on there called the weighted relative citation ratio, which weights the relative impact of her science compared to other NIH-funded investigators. Her score is almost 120. That's very high. Her mean relative citation ratio is 1.78. That means her papers are cited 1.78 times more than other NIH-funded papers in the same field. Google Scholar has other amazing statistics about Dr. Friel's work, over 6,000 citations, an H-index of 39. I had the good fortune to co-author one of these papers with Dr. Friel. She did all the heavy lifting. She was the first author, and it was titled "Skilled Bimanual Training Drives Motor Cortex Plasticity in Children with Unilateral CP." This was a study in which she used TMS to map the expansion of the motor cortex in children receiving skilled bimanual therapy, and showed that neuroplastic change happened in a very rapid period of time, and it did not happen in a control group that received unstructured play. That paper has a relative citation ratio of 4.13, meaning it's cited 4-fold more times than other papers in this field. So thank you, Kathleen, for helping improve my H-index. Also amazingly productive with grants. She's an old hand at writing, winning, and reviewing grants. Starting back to 1999, when she had her first F31, and then in 2004 an F-32, and then she got her K award in 2008, an RO3 in 2013, her first RO1 in 2014. Now, many investigators don't bridge that K to R gap. She did, and in record time. And then went on to get another RO3 in 2015, another RO1 in 2016, and another RO1 in 2018. I'm just tired reading this list. These are hard grants to get and laborious work to do, and Kathleen has succeeded in all of them. But it's never been about her individual success. Yes, her science is impactful. Yes, she has lots of papers and grants, but she's doing it with the goal of having clinical impact. And she does it as a scientist who is generative and collaborative, and that's reflected in today's symposium. I'd like to close with a few personal remarks. As I've moved throughout different phases of my career, I've been fortunate to work with a few mentees from whom I've learned more than I've ever been able to teach them, and Kathleen was one of those. She taught me so many things, new scientific areas. I did not have a background in neurodevelopment. She taught me about neurodevelopment. She taught me about translational models of neuroplasticity. She taught me about new ways to be a scientist by being fiercely focused on the ultimate clinical impact of one's work. She taught me new dimensions of personal resilience. It's said that Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in high heels. Well, Kathleen climbed the academic ladder, like many of us did, but she did it despite the ableism and bias that many of those she was competing with did not have to face as a consequence of our privilege. She taught me that all of us have unconscious bias. She didn't teach me that directly, but experientially by being on her research team and working together. And it demonstrates the importance of diverse perspectives on investigational teams. We first met by email. We emailed for a long time, and through these email exchanges, I learned about her exceptional intelligence and her creativity. And when we met in person for the first time, and I saw that she had CP, something I did not know, I realized that I had implicit biases about what a person with CP could accomplish. I knew what it felt like to be underestimated as a woman in science, and she had that experience too. But it wasn't until that moment that I realized in my heart, I really felt how much privilege I had had and how many things I was taking for granted. That was an important lesson that I carry with me to this day. In preparation for today's event, I pulled out an old letter of recommendation that I wrote for Kathleen for her KL2. And I'm going to read part of it because in this letter, I made predictions almost 20 years ago, and they have all come to fruition. I said in that letter, I am confident that Dr. Friel will be a leader in neurorehabilitation research. Dr. Friel is an inspiration in her high level of commitment to researching the topic of CP. She is the most determined and hardworking young investigator I have had the good fortune to encounter. By the way, that's still true. An investment in her future will have a very high yield, and I believe it will lead to a brighter future for people living with CP. As Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story. Congratulations on an amazing career, Kathleen, and thank you for inviting me to celebrate it with you.
I'm not sure she's on.
Hi, Kathleen. I'm sorry I can't be there.
She's there.
Hey, Holly, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your video. And thank you for showing me that a woman could succeed in this field. Your career has inspired me so much. And I'm so excited for your new role. So, congratulations. And thank you again. And I'll mail you again.
Thank you, Kathleen.